Hello, this is Daryl here, sending love as always. Thank you for tuning in. I just want to say if you like this interview, you can check our website for companion workbooks, action guides, tools, checklists, templates, and show notes with links for everything mentioned on the call. Just visit bestbusinesscoach.ca. That's best, B-E-S-T, businesscoach.ca. Enjoy. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we have a special returning guest. This man is a pioneer of internet marketing. He put on the very first internet marketing seminar with the founder of, what was the browser, Ken? This is 1996, wasn't it? Or earlier?
94, it was the original Mosaic browser, which became Netscape, which was the very first commercial browser.
Yeah, Ken's been here forever. The banner ad was created at one of his infamous system seminar conferences, as well as the fact that they were doing video marketing, I think back when nobody was doing video marketing. I don't even know if porn had picked up video yet at that point online.
Oh, no, porn always gets there first, but we were doing video marketing in 2005.
Yeah.
And when I gave a talk at a Perry Marshall event in 2006, I said, video is the future of the internet. Gave about an hour explanation for why. Then I asked how many people believe me, and only half of them put their hands up.
Yeah. Ken is the who's who. So for those that are here, and I do want to lament about, not to just blow a bunch of hot air, Ken, but I want to lament because since the pandemic and that, a lot of people have been pushed online and a lot of them have found like their guru of choice. And what a lot of people may or may not know is Ken, again, he is like the apex of the internet marketing chain, so to speak. A lot of people may know ClickFunnels. It's probably one of the biggest softwares in the internet marketing space. And the founder just bought all of Dan Kennedy's intellectual property. And Dan Kennedy's go-to guy for all things internet marketing related were Ken. He was one of the few, if not the only person Dan Kennedy really trusted when it came to online marketing in terms of what worked and what didn't. So Ken,
I have another one that I only learned recently. Who's the 4-hour-a-week guy?
Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss. Okay. So somebody asked Tim Ferriss what his favorite book was. And he said, it was a Dan Kennedy book, and I can't remember the title now. Make Millions with Your Ideas. And all the chapters in that book on the internet were written by me. And the method that Tim Ferriss used to come up with that chapter was the method that we first introduced at the system seminar, which is take a lot of chapters of your book, buy ads on Google AdWords, and just count the clicks and see which one works. So yeah, wherever you go in the internet, when you get deep, you find me.
Yeah. All roads lead back to Ken. I almost can guarantee it. So it is an honor and a pleasure to have you here. Yeah, again, I really appreciate it. It's been a wild ride these last few years. So before we jump into that, though, for some of the people, can you talk about how did you even get into online marketing?
Well, I got involved in it because I was in San Francisco, and there was a lot of it. There wasn't any internet marketing going on, but there was a lot of online stuff going on. And at the time, I was doing a lot of direct mail because there was no internet marketing when I started.
Right.
I looked at the internet and very quickly figured out this is going to be direct mail on steroids. And so I started bringing people from the direct marketing industry and people from the internet industry together, and taught the direct marketing people about the internet, taught the internet people about direct marketing. If you Google my name, Time Magazine, and click-through rate, you'll see that the whole concept of calculating the click-through rate came from me. Basically, I hate to say it, but I mean, email marketing. I wrote the first article on email marketing.
Yep.
I was one of the very first people to use what I call sequential autoresponders. I don't know what that was in 95. Or excuse me, 96.
What was it? The Systems Club Beginner? What was it called? The manual. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then, one of my students was the first guy to sell banner ads in volume. That was Rick Boyce. We were the first to have push button audio on the internet. I mean, I had even forgotten that. And then somebody reminded me. So all this podcasting and all this stuff you see before us, you used to have to download a player, then download the file, then put the file in the player. I mean, it was ridiculous. Yep. And one of our faculty members came up with the idea of just packing all the audio into a Flash player, which Flash was on everybody's system.
Yeah.
And you could push the button and the audio would come right away. That was us. One of my students wrote the first book on mobile marketing, the first book. My book on internet marketing was the first internet marketing book in Japan. and on it goes.
Yeah, even traffic and conversion, which is now maybe a massive conference that happens. I think it's in San Diego. That term, traffic and conversion, that first came from you. You said all internet marketing is traffic and conversion. You generate a lot of traffic and you see if it converts, and
Yeah, because before that, everybody was, and people still get focused on trivia, but people were really focused on trivia. And, do we have a flashing light on the website? Do we look cool? Do we have a talking sock puppet? I'm all this nonsense. And I said, look, I was exasperated one day. And I said, look, it's traffic plus conversion. If you're doing anything else, you're wasting your time. And yeah, I guess that's become, well, I know Lloyd Irvin, our mutual friend, has used that to build a 8-figure a year business. So it's a good handy little formula.
That's right. Yeah. Well, even Jermaine Griggs, he's also a good friend of mine. And
can I say something? Jermaine, there are now 1 million guys teaching piano on the internet.
Yep.
Jermaine was the first, and he's still the best.
He's teaching it. We talk almost every day. We chat every day. He's the GOAT. He's like you. He's been in this game over 20 years, and it's just fundamentals, well applied. And this almost ties in. I have this quote that I got from you, and it still rings with me today. And it was delegate as much as you can. So you're calling the shots, analyzing the stats, and copywriting. And I've kind of updated that to just be like delegate and automate as much as you can. So you're calling the shots, analyzing the stats. And for me, I put communicating and converting, because communication, it's like retention and sales. Which is really almost better than saying copywriting, because you're focusing on the function. There's nothing, copywriting is not important. What's important are attracting people and converting them and retaining them. And you use copy to do that. Right.
So it's better. But it's better to be focused the way you are rather than just be focused on writing. People just kind of get off the track when they get too into the writing part. You really need to think about, okay, got to bring people in, got to get them on board, got to keep them on board.
Yeah. Yes. So were your parents entrepreneurs? Is that what got you into being?
Not at all. Oh my God, not in the slightest, not in the least. They're the least entrepreneurial people in the world.
How'd you even get into business? Was that your speed reading? I'm trying to remember.
The first supporting myself money I ever made was, I had a company that taught speed reading and study skills to college students. This was way pre-internet. Yeah.
Yeah. If you did flyers, I think you were telling me about that. You had a little.
Yeah, it was flyers. I lived this might even work I know you're from Kingston, Ontario. You're not there anymore. But, New York is, among other things, it's a huge college town. And a lot of people are getting degrees, and it's very dense and there's a lot of people. So all I needed to do to build that business was post. I posted thousands of flyers a week, but that was my only advertising method. And I really couldn't even make anything else work. There was no internet at the time, but flyers were amazing.
That's fantastic. I love that, because it's all the same. I don't want to say it's all the same, but the principles are very similar, I think. It's
the same. I would say it is the same. It's a flyer on a light pole, or it's a web page on a website. You got to do the same thing. You got to have a good headline. You have to have a reason for them to contact you, and then you have to have a way to convert them. It really is the same thing.
So can you maybe, for people that are listening and maybe are new to the game, what could you wax poetic a little bit more about, kind of in all your tenure, what are the fundamentals? Like if you had to give yourself or a child or something, the top 3 or 5 principles off the top of your head before we move into some of this other stuff, again, because a lot of people are trying to pivot online all of a sudden. So, what would you recommend?
Well, number 1, become an expert on a market versus becoming a marketing expert. Okay, because money is made by knowing a particular market and working that market successfully. And I'm all for learning every marketing trick in the world and reading every marketing book in the world. I'm all for that. But it's way more important that you identify a promising market and get to know that market inside and out. And I'm amazed how many people go into business not thinking about that. It's the market that matters. It's the market that matters, and your knowledge of the market.
Used to use the analogy of diving into a swimming pool, no water.
Yeah. Well, that's, I had a student that was coach of the British Olympic diving team, so it got me thinking about diving. And, it's all the same thing. You're diving off a diving board into water. If there's no water, you're in deep trouble. right? So if you're trying to go after a market that doesn't exist, which a lot of entrepreneurs do, there's no hope. But there's another problem. What if the market there's water in there, but it's frozen solid? In other words, it's a non-responsive market. It is water, but you dive into it and it's not going to be a pleasant experience. And then I've added another twist to it. What if it's steam? What if it's a market that's just, I don't know, it's just, it just, you're going to get burned, So what you want is you want to be diving into a swimming pool that has water. And that means a marketplace of a good size that you can target with media that's responsive to direct response offers. And I just gave you guys the whole game right there. And it may take you 20 years to understand how profound what I just said was, but that's what the game is, right? And then once on the path to doing that is a lot of research. And it's amazing how many people try to do internet marketing who don't get on the internet and check out every single offer in the market that they intend to enter. You need to become the walking encyclopedia on every single thing going on online in the market that you want to enter. You need to know everything. There are people like in Canada, everybody knows all the hockey players, and in Spain, everybody knows all the soccer players, and in America, everybody knows the basketball players. They know the guy's name, they know the guy's stats, and then they'll go into business and they don't even know the top 3 players in the industry that they're trying to enter. It's just so don't be that guy. Be the guy that becomes obsessively interested. Because what you do is you learn everything. You say, oh, well, look at that offer, and look at that price structure, and look at that thing that he's put together. And it just all comes together in your mind, and you see where the holes are. And then I'll give you my second big secret, and then no more secrets. People got to join my system club for secrets. But the other secret is product development is not rocket science. Okay. It's like walking on a road, and sometimes you're going to see a hole in the road, and sometimes you're going to see a bump in the road. Now, if you're driving on a car and you're just, racing through, you're not going to see anything. You got to get out of your car and look. If there's a hole in the road, that means there's something the market isn't providing the people in the marketplace. So fill the hole. Right? A bump would be things that exist but are kind of clunky, expensive, slow, inefficient, unpleasant, and your job is to smooth that out. So if you're looking for how to enter a marketplace, that's how you enter a marketplace. See everything that's swirling around, and then figure out, okay, what would excite the people in this particular marketplace that's different, that brings something that nobody else is bringing, or eliminates a problem or series of problems that nobody else is eliminating. And as you know, I'm a good copywriter, and we could talk about copywriting all day, but unless you get these things right, no amount of copywriting save you.
Right. That's Gary Bencivengo is saying problems are markets, and even
exactly.
I think Maxwell Sackheim said, when your offer is right, something about like when your offer and your market are right, the copy writes itself. Basically, like
that is just so true, guys. And anybody that's experienced writer's block, it's research deficit. You haven't done enough. If you've done enough homework, you will figure out what to say.
Right.
And you don't even need to be like the world's greatest writer if you've picked the right market with the right offer and you're coming at it from the right angle. You cannot overcome getting those things wrong.
I love it.
Yeah.
Those are some fantastic tips already that makes this interview repeat worthy. People may want to go back and listen to this stuff again.
Let me say, I've been doing this a long time, and I definitely recommend people review everything I just said and get it into their bones, because it will catapult them beyond 99.9% of the wannabes.
Oh, 100%. I spent $50,000 to research. Everybody was arguing about the science in 2020. And I spent 50 grand because I've done, hundreds of these interviews. And I was like, what does the science say about business success? So I put together a team of about 7 people, a couple more. So I say 7 teams. And we went through all the academic journals. We went through like 70 years of research to figure out what are the critical success factors for small and medium-sized businesses. And based off of the research, all these different studies prove different things. And if people don't know, a meta-analysis is when someone summarizes hundreds or thousands of studies on a topic or in a field. And we tried to collect meta-analyses from around the world, Dubai, or Saudi Arabia, Thailand, the US, everywhere. And all these things proved, and even some disproved things. And we tried to figure out like a Venn diagram, what were the overlapping umbrella categories? And we found 8 critical success factors. And so the first one is self-efficacy. We can get into the subtopics. The second one was market intelligence. And I'm saying these in order of kind of like, again, like fundamentals. You almost start at one and build your way back. And what you talked about right there, self-efficacy, market intelligence, strategic planning, marketing strategy, sales strategy and skills, money management, business operations, and business intelligence. And they're all pretty self-explanatory, but business operations is like the meeting rhythms, your cybersecurity, where you host your IP, that your HR, like hiring processes, and business intelligence are like the feedback loops. I know there's a lot of people, they make all these wild claims, or they sell these products, and they get a bunch of refunds, and they end up getting taken in front of the FTC or whatever, and it's because they weren't, or a bunch of bad press online. They weren't getting the feedback. They weren't paying attention to their dashboards and tracking those
Right,
things.
right.
So it's, but the stats don't matter if you don't have the market intelligence lined up. If you're not able to generate leads and people raising their hands, if you're not able to convert those to sales, all that other stuff doesn't matter. So it's like, you got to start at the beginning and work.
I mean, it really, you did present it really in the order that matters. Obviously, you have to be effective as a person. You have to get up and, work a day's work. But the second thing is you need market intelligence. And from that comes the strategy and the right marketing and all that, and the right product development. That all flows from knowing the market, because it's we need to be experts on specific markets. Not it's good to be a global marketing expert. It won't hurt you, but there are a lot of global marketing experts that don't make any money.
Yep.
There are a lot of guys that couldn't give a lecture on marketing who are making tons of money because they are in one market which they really understand, and they're mining it beautifully.
Yeah. Blockbuster is a good example I like to bring up, where they were they were doing billions in sales every year, and they got wiped out and run bankrupt by Netflix. And they even had the opportunity to buy Netflix, but they were so detached from the market and the strategic plan. It's almost like the builders and the innovators had built it, and then all the managers, lawyers, and accountants, no offense, had moved in, and they didn't necessarily know how to create that. And so it was more about just like maximizing what existed versus, newspapers were the same thing. Newspaper subscriptions were the river of gold, and then all of a sudden it started to dry up, and it was either, do we have enough money to hold on till someone figures it out, or who could stay in touch with the market.
Torstar, which owns the Toronto Star and owns a lot of little newspapers. It's the biggest media company in Canada. They hired me 15 years ago. And I told them they were doomed, and they just didn't get it. I said, look, you got, and it was really interesting to visit Torstar, because I don't know where they're housed now, but their building was enormous. And I'd be walking down these hallways, and I'd see these huge rooms off each doorway empty. And so their overhead was incredible. And I said, look, Google, which was then an upstart, they've got all the content in the world. They don't have to pay for any of it. Mm-hmm. They don't have a single ad salesman. All the ad purchases are self-service. They can sell to every market in the world. You're limited to Canada and Ontario. They're going to kill you. Yep. You need to figure it out. And speaking of Google, Google offered to sell itself to every search company when they first got started. And I think the price was either $1 million or $2 million. They were going to sell all the IP. That's what they wanted to do. And nobody bit.
Wow.
So there's a huge perceptual deficit out there. And that's how we make our money. We see where the holes are, right, which requires, research and looking and thinking, pondering. And
yeah, it's like if there was a lake, and around that lake are lots of birds, and some birds eat insects, some birds eat fruit, some birds eat nuts and seeds, some birds eat other birds, some birds eat fish. And that's kind of what you're describing. You need to know the market and be able to figure out your slice of that pie.
Yeah, because you need to succeed in the marketplace, you have to bring something new and different and better. So you have to know what the market is. Right. In order to do that. And what I was saying about this, my road repair method model for product development, is the way you find out is you get into the market and you see which products suck and why they suck, and which products are good but could be a whole lot better. And then you put something together and craft it. And then that market, that product, if you've designed it right, becomes the magnet that brings you the all important buyers. I'll give you one more thing, and then we'll get on to the other topics tonight. But This is another key one, guys, and this will take you years to realize how profound it is. There's a difference between buyers and non-buyers.
Mm.
A buyer is a buyer is a buyer is a buyer. So if they buy one thing, if they buy, toothpaste online and music online, there's a chance they'll buy what you're selling online, right?
Yep.
If they don't buy online, you are not going to sell them anything online. Okay, so you have to be realistic about, a lot of people say, well, the market's huge. There's $10 billion in sales. If I could just get, one little percent of that, you're not going to get that percent. So you have to be realistic that you're only going to sell to people that are buyers. And the whole purpose of building a business is to accumulate a big list of buyers to whom you can sell things to on an ongoing basis. It's not about the home run sale. Maybe once in a blue moon, you'll find somebody that had one product and he killed it and he sold $1 million worth of it in a year and he retired. That's not what happens. What happens is somebody step by step acquired a following, and that became a cash cow that he pulled cash out of regularly until it finally became something significant. So the product is a magnet for buyers who become your followers, who become your cash cows. That's really what this game is all about.
Right. I think the quote is, if a sale is a golden egg, a customer is the goose.
Exactly.
Right?
You want the goose.
Yeah.
You're looking for gooses.
Right.
And most people think it's all about golden eggs. I got to find a golden egg. No, you got to find a flock of geese.
Yeah. You have to find that person in it. I think it gets at a long term. You have to be in it to help people long term, over and over and over again. Right. Not just one night stand.
And I'll share another really big one here is you're looking for problems that don't go away. Like that's why health. Fitness is great because you can always be more fit.
Yep.
Martial arts, which is kind of a niche market, but it's a very hungry market, is great because as soon as you learn one technique, there's somebody that's got something to counter it. So that really well, right?
That's
financial
tip. That's a great tip.
Huge. It's huge. You don't want to solve somebody's problem forever on the first try. I mean, it'd be a nice thing to do, but from terms of forming a business, well, look at toothpaste. You have to brush your teeth every day. It's an unsolvable. You don't brush your teeth with the greatest toothbrush ever, and now you're done. You're basically brushing your teeth for the rest of your life. So you want to be in the toothpaste business,
right? And people develop preferences. So that's fantastic. Now, I do, like you said, want to segue this, and actually, I think a way is in our research. Those were the 8 factors we learned that people can do something about. There was a 9th factor, and I think that's kind of going to be the focus for our call, and that was government and economy. Because we learned that there's friendly governance and friendly economies, and hostile governance and hostile economic conditions. And we learned that, basically all you could do is focus on those 8 things, but that's still a huge factor that businesses have to be aware of. And I think that's, the last few years, we've really seen, the middle class and small businesses just completely decimated. And for full disclosure, Ken and I have been friends for years, but this is our first time talking in a couple of years because I was fully drinking the Kool-Aid in 2020. I was all, with the program. And Ken, being the pioneer he is, pioneers get the arrows, the settlers get the lands. He was trying to warn me that there are nefarious games afoot. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, it was a hard time because, I have, like everybody else, I've got businesses to run. And then this thing came out of left field. And that became, a full-time job plus for me, trying to combat it. And so, I was pretty much, right now, guys, I can only talk to people that are with me. I can't explain the whole thing. So I had blog posts and I actually put out a lot of content, a lot of education. Some of that got put into this book, which just came out. Unraveling the COVID con. And this has podcasts and interviews that I did starting in April 2020. So anyway, it was and still is a busy time for me. I got, it was hard. It was exhausting. It was exhausting. One of the things I did, it was pretty clear that Fauci was sort of the key man in the whole deal. So I started, because, and this applies to everything, right? We have to just survive, rely on advice. I have to assume that if there's a map that shows me how to drive to New York City, that the map is correct. I don't have to buy my own satellite to take photos of the pathway between my house and New York City to make sure that there's really a road there, but Fortunately, sometimes we do have to do like that. So the question you always want to ask yourself is, who's saying it?
Right.
Whatever that information is, who's saying it, and what's that person's background and track record?
Yep.
And it turned out that, Fauci actually has a really bad track record. And this
Yes.
is something that people still don't know. I mean, he's got a bad track record going back 40 years.
Yep.
And it's not just one screw up. He's screwed up catastrophically many times, always in the same way.
Yep.
So I did a lot of research on that. A lot of that research appeared in the book, The Real Anthony Fauci, written by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I got involved in marketing that book because they did not have a marketing plan.
Yes.
Their marketing plan,
so
their marketing plan was to announce the book was available and then get on to the next project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
This book has the potential to be a killer because
Yes.
it was the right topic about the right guy at the right time by the right guy. And so the publisher originally published 200,000 copies, which he expected to sell in a year and a half. And we sold 1 million in 2 months.
Wow.
And
wow.
I played a big role in it, but the wind was blowing, and as I said to one of the people involved in it, we absolutely, because also talking about markets, there were no good books out coming at the time that on anything, not just on COVID, but on any subject. It was a real lull in the publishing industry. And I said to somebody who I was working with on that, I said, look, we've got the fastest boat on the water right now. We just have to raise our sails.
Yeah.
I don't mean selling. We had to put the sails up and let the wind carry us. And the wind really carried that book.
Oh, 100%. And now, as we know, a lot of it was, from the Twitter files that have been coming out, the massive censorship. There was a huge need for this. There was a book about, it was something called like how the prime minister stole democracy. I forget the name of it, but it was a children's book that hit #1 in Canada for like a month. And it was all about Trudeau and the trucker protest thing. Because the censorship was so bad, you couldn't get anything out. But this children's book went on Amazon and it was #1 on the whole Canada Amazon store for like 3 months. Yeah.
Oh, let me write that down. I want to check that out.
Yeah. It was like how the PM stole democracy, but it was a kid's book. And it was like you talked about, The Real Anthony Fauci. It was like, where can we get the truth out? Where can we actually reach people? Because again, as we learned through the Twitter files, there was mass censorship happening by government agencies, and it just stifled the conversation in one way. I mean, the power, like for me, just a kind of 30 seconds, I grew a successful martial arts school over 3 years. And then I went and applied the things that I'd learned from you and I'd used to build my martial arts school. And I applied that with John Assaraf to an online business. And we did 3.2 million in 8 months, 1.6 million with a single marketing strategy online that was highly automated. And it was just the scale, because with the internet, you reach everywhere. And the problem is this censorship and the governance through the Twitter files. We've seen that they've been exporting political ideology and censoring conversations worldwide. And that's, it's pros and cons. I'd like to think the world's not getting worse. It's just the evils that's existed is becoming, coming into the sunlight, so to speak.
That's kind of the second thing to look at. So, the first thing is, all right, who's saying it and what's this guy's track record? And the next thing is, next big red flag is there open conversation about what's going on? And as you pointed out, there was not. I mean, the people should know this, and not enough people know it. Bill Gates gave over $300 million to various news outlets, The Guardian, NPR, Los Angeles Times, Le Monde in Paris, El País in Spain. And, these we were talking about newspapers earlier, they're all broke. Yeah. So if somebody shows up at their door with $2 or $3 million, he owns them. Yeah, he just owns them. So that was the other thing. When you can't talk about, and you can't ask questions and you can't raise facts, there's obviously a problem. There's a problem,
Yes. That's Karl Popper was one of the early science educators, and he had a formula for the scientific method. He said there is no method that produces scientific breakthroughs. If there were, they would be more frequent, more common, and more revolutionary. But what we have is a process of how we can stop fooling ourselves. And this formula was P1 plus TT plus EE equals P2. And the idea was problem 1 plus tentative solution, which he said tentative theory, temporary solution, plus eliminate errors. And we eliminate errors through criticism, debate, experimentation, observation. And that will lead you to problem 2, or you're still at problem 1, but you've learned more about the problem. And the issue, like I say, when there's censorship, there's no eliminating errors. And that's the real power of even democracy in the voting system. It's not to guarantee the best person always gets in the office. It's to have a way that we can eliminate errors and hopefully get the wrong people and the wrong policies out of office faster. And that's a real value of that, because it's about progress, constant improvement. And if we don't constantly improve, we're stuck. And, and it's stagnation. It's dangerous.
And, ironically, to be successful in business, you actually have to be a scientist.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean you have to know biology or calculus or any of that, but you have to observe,
yes,
come up with, hunches or hypotheses or guesses, and then you test them.
Yep.
And you see, well, I think this headline will work. Let's see what happens. And it works, great. Or maybe it doesn't work. And then and then you come up with a better one. That's so right. In fact, that one of the guys that really got me to understand the fraud very early on, and he disappeared. I kind of have to look at what happened to him. He was a Google AdWords campaign expert who worked for political parties and looked at the statistics that were being thrown around by the fraudsters, and he said, bullshit. He knew statistics, he knew how numbers worked. He was reading, he was looking at their numbers and saying, these, and we actually know a lot about viral transmission as advertisers and as people that track social media. We actually know a lot about that. And we know, you can get into the math of it too. You don't need to get into the math, but there is math to be gotten into. This guy was way into the math, and he was looking at all their transmission statistics and saying that these are not real numbers. They can't be. Yeah. That's how I broke an election fraud in San Francisco in 1977. And it was, I also was tipped off by a statistician. He said that the numbers in the election made absolutely no sense. The one group was ahead 10% right up until the election. On all the original counts that night, they were ahead 10%. And then when the last ballot boxes came in, suddenly the whole election flipped, and now the other side won. And he said that statistically, it's like 1 in a trillion that you would ever see numbers fall.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really dangerous, because that means, it's like the WHO trying to take control of health policy around the world. Nobody elected those people. And because there isn't a way of, like we said, our voting system, there's how confident can we be in their process of eliminating errors right? Like, forget the whole nefarious globalist. Okay, let's put all that aside. How do we quickly and efficiently eliminate errors, identify and eliminate them? And where's that data coming from? Do we have to wait for a small group of people to feel the pressure while millions and hundreds and tens of millions, hundreds of millions around the world suffer? Like, that's the real scary part about all this. So,
there's another part to it, and I haven't, to a degree I have, but I haven't done it to the extent that I'd like, which is to become, I am very familiar with other countries and other places to live. And I think everybody should have a passport. It's amazing how many American citizens don't have passports. I remember I had this high-end coaching group, and I wanted to travel to different places. So we had a meeting in London, we had a meeting in Montreal, my favorite city. We had a meeting in Vancouver, another beautiful, beautiful city. And we had members in our group that, there was sophisticated people. They had nice businesses, they were educated. They didn't have passports. They all had to go and get passports. And I said, if I do nothing else for you, I've gotten you to get a passport. People should really travel, see other countries, see how things are done in other places, not get hypnotized that your country's the greatest country that ever existed. It may have some good qualities, it may have some bad qualities, and you may find yourself more comfortable and more prosperous. There's a guy, what's his name? Andrew Henderson, the nomad capitalist. I don't want to give him a free advertising, because I don't want to endorse anybody that I haven't checked out thoroughly, but he's very big on, he's an American, but he lives overseas, and he's organized his tax life, so he pays no taxes. He actually got rid of his American citizenship. There's a lot of I don't want to go too far off on this, but there's a lot of downsides financially to being an American citizen. We are super, super taxed. Even if we're living in the Philippines or in Mexico or in Romania or in, we still have to pay
tax.
That's the only country in the world. I think Rwanda or some other or Iran or some horrible country.
They'll hunt you
But other
down.
countries, like if you're a Canadian and you're not paying taxes to Canada when you're living in the
Right.
Philippines,
Right. Right.
and you can arrange. This is an advanced thing, and I wouldn't even think about it until you're starting to make some money. But once you're starting to make some money, definitely go around and see how you can rearrange where you live and where your business is based and where you're
Yeah.
paying taxes, because it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, some kind of prepper items is to try and get multiple passports, to have multiple bank accounts in different places.
Yep.
That's a lot of people don't think about that. But if you can open up a bank account somewhere else and still have an international card that works, there's real value to that, having it in more than one country. Learning some basic food, like agriculture skills. I mean, right now with inflation, with everything that's happening, what was so shocking to me is how easy it is to keep chickens. I'm like, if you have a yard, you just make sure there's a cage so nothing can get in and kill them, because the cats want to go get them. And, you throw some food down, sure, if you want, but generally speaking, they just eat the bugs. And one chicken will give you 5-7 eggs a week. And
they're the best eggs you'll ever eat.
And if you got eggs every day, you're good. So, I mean, there's just some really basic fundamental things that people can do. You can easily set up a hydroponic system with solar panels. It might not be enough to, power your house, but it can power a little motor to push water around and grow some plants for you, so there's a lot of value in that. So that's kind of like the food, power, and then health, sleep, diet, exercise, plants and protein, wherever you want to get your protein from. That's a real fundamental. If it's got a food label, it's not food. This speaks to a little bit of the corruption. There's a chart on Our World in Data. If you look up life expectancy versus health expenditure, the United States is an outlier. It's over double, almost triple what you would pay in any other country, not almost, in any other country in the world. And the life expectancy isn't even top 10.
No.
Like China is a third world country, and they're outliving Americans now.
And their medical results in America are really poor. On the food front, one thing to do is also live somewhere where people still grow their own food. Yeah. Even if you're not a farmer yourself, it's nice if there are people around you that still know how to do that. In the United States, there are a million wonderful small towns throughout the United States where real estate is still, affordable. Sometimes there's a college, so there's social and cultural things going on. And then 10 minutes, 15 minutes out of town, there's people farming.
Yep.
Rather than living in Orlando or Las Vegas.
Yeah.
One of those places where, there is no food.
It's just a food desert.
Food desert. Live somewhere like where we live, it's pretty good. In the season, we can get eggs, beautiful eggs all the time. We can get great meat. But, during this growing season, we get the best produce in the world. There's farms everywhere around here.
So
and
sorry.
Yeah, it makes a difference. The quality of the food you eat makes a big difference.
100%. And just access to it. Again, you want to know what you're getting. That's the problem with ordering food all the time. And when it comes out of a box, a lot of ways food companies are like drug dealers. They buy like a pound of cocaine and they mix it with 3 pounds of other stuff. And now they got 4 pounds of product and they shove it out, but it's non-food, not good for you. And there really is a partnership between food companies and big pharma, where the one gets you sick and the other one keeps getting you to your next appointment, and you're paying monthly, weekly for your groceries, and you're paying weekly for your meds. And they just got you on this cycle. There's more money in sick people than healthy ones. You talked about Fauci's track record. Pfizer themselves in 2009 paid the biggest criminal fine ever in American history. They paid $3.6 billion or something. It's on the government website for criminal fines for fraudulent marketing a known dangerous product. And we made the U.S. health authorities and Pfizer the leaders through this pandemic. Like, you couldn't have picked worse people to lead you through. It's like picking a tour guide to take you into the jungle, where the last 3 tours, nobody came back.
Right. And he's the one that robbed everybody in the jungle. Yeah. It's madness. It's mad. Well, they control the news media. And that's why I don't blame people necessarily, because really things were absolutely locked down and controlled. The facts about Pfizer, the facts about Fauci's track record, the facts that the extreme exaggeration of the danger, what they called a virus. I mean, everything was exaggerated. And the people that really knew, the Oxford guys, the Harvard guys, the Yale guys, the Stanford guys, they were all locked out. Yeah. They could not get media appearances.
Yeah, they were deplatformed, censored, shadow banned. So how do people avoid being fooled? Like, what do you recommend now? You already started talking about a little bit. You were talking about kind of like primary sources and,
Not just, if somebody's saying something, who is this guy and what's his track record? Especially when something huge is at stake. And, this was huge. This was trillions of dollars of wealth in the hands of people like you and me and regular working people, just was evaporated in just a few years. Kids didn't go to school. Handicapped people didn't get the daily, therapy they need.
Yep.
I mean, it was just a catastrophic train wreck. So if something's, and everybody in their life is going to, at some point, maybe more than one point, is going to be faced with a big decision, either a big financial decision or a big health decision. And I think whenever it's big, you need to stop and say, okay, I need information. I'm getting information from this guy. Who is he? What's his track record? Does he have a dog in the fight that maybe is against my best interest that I'm not aware of? I mean, all these things become really important. And then the second thing is there open discussion about the conclusion? Because nobody's God. Nobody knows everything. People can get it wrong. And that's why it's important, especially if you're going to do something drastic.
Yep.
But even things like if you're going to buy a house, I would knock on the door. I mean, when I bought a house, I haven't bought one in a long time that I live in, I would knock on the door of neighbors and say, hi, I'm thinking of moving to this neighborhood. What's it like? And you may find good things. You may find horrible things. You may say, oh, well, they're putting in a rendering plant next month. They're going to be taking cows and dead horses and turning them into glue. And you're like, whoa, the realtor didn't tell me that.
Right. Yeah. Can you speak to that a bit? Because I think some people, they don't understand why they can't just accept a pre-digested opinion. Like all these fact checker things. Can you speak a little bit about the Google bomb and the reputation management industry?
Well, the fact checkers are all frauds. I mean, the fact checking industry was created as a cover and as an attack dog to cover lies and shut down the people that were trying to ask intelligent questions.
Right.
So it's not real. Nothing about the fact checking industry is real. You can trace them all back to foundations, and the foundations can all be tracked back to pharma, to big tech, to people like Gates.
Right.
Here's something frightening. I put this book out too.
The Nuremberg Code. Yes.
And that's sort of the fundamental medical ethics document in the 20th century. And there's this whole field of people called medical ethicists. And as I mentioned in the book, the average salary for a medical ethicist, if you're employed as one, is about $100,000 a year. If you're a professor, you're going to get about 150 plus the benefits. There are 36 medical ethics programs, degree granting medical ethics programs in the United States. The FDA, the CHD, they all have medical ethics departments, staffed with well-paid people getting taxpayer dollars. We had just had the 75th anniversary of the Nuremberg Code, and not a single one of these people whose living it is to talk about medical ethics and think about medical ethics wrote an article, did an interview, had a conference, had a podcast,
right?
Did anything to pay attention to this document. So even the medical ethics community industry is completely corrupt, completely. Right.
Right.
One guy in a university of California stood up and he lost his job. The rest of them went along with everything. Yeah. And it really was the job of the medical ethicists to say, gee, do we really want to deprive children of their educations? Do we really want to deprive elderly people in nursing homes of getting company of their family? Do we really want to shut down family-owned businesses across the world? Do we really, those questions should have been asked by medical ethicists, and they didn't say a peep.
No, you couldn't say anything.
Yeah, and then I have a friend that's a real expert in all this, and she was my co-author on this. She's a Holocaust survivor. She's 87, and she's also a student of the pharmaceutical industry and all their misdeeds. And she explained to me, oh yeah, the medical ethics industry is a joke.
Right.
They've been set up, they're endowed, and their purpose is to not rock the boat for anything that pharma or the government wants to do.
Right.
So they get into crazy conversations like, and I'll tell you right now, oh, shouldn't the government pay for a 10-year-old to have a sex change operation? That's the kind of things they're talking about in the medical ethics circles. Instead of asking, should children have an education? They're asking crazy stuff and supporting that.
Yeah, there's a lack of personal accountability, the personal responsibility. Oh, yeah. And this has been a slippery slope. I brought up reputation management because I want people to understand that, they say never attribute to malice what can be easily attributed to incompetence. And I feel like part of how we got in here may have been the early foundations of reputation management, where maybe a competitor doesn't like you, and so them and their friends slander your business. And so reputation management originally started with companies that tried to help good companies kind of clean their reputation. And this became building networks of influencers before influencers were a thing, media outlets, where they could get an article published. There was something called the Oprah effect, where Oprah used to have a team that would have to audit your business before you could be featured or mentioned on their shows, because it would crush businesses. If Oprah just was on like, oh, I'm just eating my little croissant from my local bakery and I love them so much, and then 5,000 people show up at their door, the negative reviews outweigh, because they don't have the scale, the capacity. A lot of these people, they don't care. They don't care that all the staff are working and someone just had it. Like, they don't care. They expect like McDonald's drive-through anytime service. So the negative reviews could bury, and just the negative talk could bury these companies that got mentioned. It was called the Oprah effect. So reputation management kind of came as, I think in the early days, benign enough in the sense of a way for companies that are dealing with something like that, or maybe they did do bad, but they've committed to improve, and they tried to get rid of that, make up for that reputation, especially online being a digital tattoo. But now it becomes, hey, this one person has this network, they can get you on Bloomberg, on the cover of Time magazine, all this stuff. You just have to pay to play, as you mentioned, like Bill Gates, and all of a sudden you could have committed a genocide with polio vaccines, and all of a sudden now you're the world's greatest philanthropist and the savior of humanity,
by amazing coincidence, a system grad who is a really innovative physical therapist got really interested in all these topics of information control and wrote this really good book. She just sent it to me.
Oh, that looks good. One Idea to Rule Them All: Reverse Engineering American Propaganda. For people that are only listening to the audio, you need to check out these books. Ken is published. You can look him up on Amazon. Ken McCarthy, McCarthy. It's also his own site, kenmccarthy.com. But he has his books on Amazon: Unraveling the COVID Con, How One Marketer Exposed the Truth When It Mattered. There's a volume 1 and volume 2. And earlier he was showing his book, The Nuremberg Code. It's the 75th anniversary commemorative edition on this. And these, like he said, the Nuremberg Code came after Germany when they tried to figure out how did this happen. And they came up with some principles in terms of medical ethics, so we would never end up in that situation again. And it's so wild. I forget his name, I forget his last name, but he was the main lead in Shawshank Redemption. I love that movie. And he was saying that
Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins. He did this great interview, and he was saying that things flip for him because, people have substance abuse issues, people attempt suicide, and we try to save them because we value human life. But somehow we went from, get the vax to you should fucking die because you didn't get it. And that's a blatant, my body, my choice. We talk about women's rights, but Nuremberg Code, it's just the propaganda, the brainwashing. And a lot of people think they're immune to propaganda, but we're all very suggestible.
You know what? No, nobody is. And that's why you need some tools, procedures because if you don't have those tools and don't use them, anybody can be washed away, because these guys did it. This was a professional operation. This was not some casual campaign. This was thoroughly thought out, billions. Who knows? I've been advising a lot of sort of resistance groups in different states, and somebody said the state of Minnesota alone in 1 year spent $1 billion on advertising, their agenda, their COVID agenda. That's one state in the United States. That's a lot. That's a lot of ad dollars. Yep. And then they got a lot of free ad dollars because you had all the newscasters just repeating whatever they had to say.
Right.
And then local politicians and
everybody joining the bandwagon. And it's called fifth generation warfare. It's a non-kinetic warfare that deals mostly with social engineering and misinformation and influence and social engineering. And we just saw that in probably the most concerted, most sophisticated global worldwide PSYOPs. And they've been beta testing this technology already apparently for years, using social media to suppress certain things. Because if you can control what people can talk about, then you control the thoughts that they have and the things and the opinions that get around. And like we mentioned about eliminating errors, that doesn't happen. So one of the best things you can do is really educate yourself about what's really going on. And one of the ways Yeah.
And even, even lots of times people feel insecure because they're going, well, I'm not a doctor. I failed biology in high school. I don't know. But you have a mind and you can ask questions. And when it comes to you and your body and your business and your life and your community and your family, you have the right to ask any questions you want. And if you're not getting answers, whether it's from Fauci or the news media or some corrupt politician or your own doctor, many of us have experiences with doctors that don't want to bother to answer questions. You're entitled to ask questions. One of my things is I never am afraid to look dumb. I don't care if I'm asking the dumbest questions in the world. I don't care because I want to know what's going on. So I'm happy to look dumb. And I don't, I feel the discomfort of that. You don't want to admit you don't know something, or you don't want to admit you don't understand something, but you have to get over that and be willing to be the dumb guy and ask all the dumb questions until you get answers that satisfy you.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And a lot of people, like if you look at Michelangelo, some of these great people from ancient times, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, they were architects. They were into astronomy. They were like painters. They were so proficient in a number of fields. Why not you? Why not you? So instead of just saying, oh, I can't, why not just take those steps and find someone that can explain it to you like a fifth grader? Because if you truly understand something, you can explain it in simple terms. Like you said.
It's really true. It's really true. People that make things super complicated and throw a bunch of incomprehensible terms around, they're not smarter. They just have a strategy to intimidate you.
Right.
That old great book, everybody should read, Winning Through Intimidation.
Yes.
Right. That is exactly what these guys did.
Yeah.
We just have to know there are unethical people out there who will do these kinds of things. And when the stakes are high, we have to stop and start asking some basic questions about what's going on. And then, it was very hard to stand up to the tidal wave of public opinion, which got the stampede of public opinion.
Oh, yeah.
But, taking this full circle, if you're a businessman or businesswoman, entrepreneur, you've got to be able to stand on your own because, you're always going to have somebody telling you can't do it. It's impossible. Your employees are going to tell you, your vendors are going to tell you, your spouses are going to tell you, your community is going to, your neighbors, your family, everyone's going to tell you all the reason why things can't be done. And your job is to find out how to get things done, regardless. My favorite saying on this is, let's see, ignore the, oh God. So you got these bunch of mules, right? Ignore the mules and load the wagon. It's like, let the mules bray and make all the noise they want to make, load the damn wagon and get that thing moving. That's the entrepreneur. That ultimately, you want to cut right to the chase. That's the entrepreneurial attitude.
100%. You can't wait for consensus.
Oh, you cannot.
To win in business, you can't wait for consensus. So that means you have to come up with a hypothesis. You have to collect data and test it and pivot. Like you said, it's a very scientific process. So one of our mutual friends, Glenn Livingston, he used to say that before he entered a market, he would research until he found a voice of contrarian reason.
Ah, nice.
That's how he would put it, where that contrarian reason, where you've found the thing that goes against the status quo, the entrenched ideologies, but it's the truth, so to speak. And that gives you solid ground to stand on because the truth doesn't mind being questioned. And, in a place with free speech and all that, that can really be, if you look at CrossFit, that's part of why CrossFit blew up. They stood on true principles, things that really worked, and, become one of the fastest growing brands in the history of the world that we're aware of.
And not everyone loves them. And that's another important lesson is, if you put up your flag and some people are going to come by and salute it and say, yeah, and other people are going to spit on it. And you got to focus, like Gary Halbert used to say, he had a book called Maximum Money and Minimum Time. And he said the book was the great meat cleaver of humanity. Some people would read it. Some people would love him after reading it. Some people would hate him after reading it. He didn't care. His job was to find the people that loved him and sell them things, So that's another really important lesson. You're never going to be loved by everybody. That is never going to happen. You're never going to be free of critics and enemies and potential saboteurs. That's never going to happen. So, but what you can do is build up a big army of people, a big team.
Right. And we need that. We need the diversity, right? We don't want everyone uniform anyways, because that's the whole concept, that through all these different opinions and that we kind of, lurch together, progress into the sunset, so to speak. So Now, Ken, I do want to be respectful of your time because I know you've got, your own following, your own members, paying members that, are eager to get your advice and your input. Is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
I think we covered it pretty good. If people, I have a book called The System Letters Book, and it's on my website, kenmccarthy.com.
Yep.
And that's a good way to get more of this kind of thinking. It's Ben Settle said it was his favorite business book at one point. I'm kind of, you write things and you forget about them and then you read them again and go, that's not too bad, So if you like this, that would be a great way to keep up with ideas like this. And that's at kenmccarthy.com. And no, I think you covered this. We covered a lot of ground in just an hour. It's good.
Yeah, we did. And actually one of mine that I really liked, because I know your body of work, was your Financial Independence Day Blueprint. I thought that was really insightful. It was just very brass tacks, good economy, bad economy, financial advice. And so again, you can find all this stuff at kenmccarthy.com. That's MCCARTHY. You can also look up the System Club. It's a monthly membership where Ken speaks with world-class experts and dispenses advice. I've been a member for probably like 10 years now, fully endorse it, firm believer in it. And if you're looking for great quality info, Ken has been a pioneer and a leader in truth and in what works for 30 years now?
Yeah, I mean, on the internet side from 93 and on the direct marketing side from like 84.
84. There we go. So Ken, thank you again so much. It's always an honor and a pleasure. And I really appreciate you sharing this mind space with me and my listeners today.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate it.